Hey you geeks! Tolkien is remembered largely as the godfather of modern fantasy, but his day job was a professor at Oxford, where he studied the classics and translated them. One such classic was Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Even though Sir Gawain did not make the cut for Monty Python, as an Arthurian legend, it is relatively well known. However, if you do not know the story, read it before viewing this review because there are twists that deserve to be discovered the first time. If you're still here, I'm going to assume that you've read it and know what I'm talking about. On with the review. Characters. Gawain. This is really a coming-of-age story or coming into maturity for Gawain. He learns the valuable lesson that one should not go about chopping off strangers' heads. They may come back to seek recompense. A good lesson to teach young noblemen in an age where killing was part of their profession.
Spartans! What is your profession?
Gawain is great because not only is he brutal, but he is also, in his own estimation, a genteel, chivalrous type. He goes about his quest garbed in all his virtues and comes back absolutely despondent because he has sinned.
You've got to say sinned as if you really sinned. Sinned.
His layers and quirks keep him from falling into the typical D&D types that populate modern fantasy today. Lord Bertalik. What a guy. He takes party crashing to epic proportions. He is also a gracious host and skilled hunter. We see him hunt deer, boar, and foxes. So we know he is a clever man, yet not above making his adversary squirm. But the whole point of his original venture was to scare Guinevere to death. In this, he obviously failed. But as a bonus, he gets to mess with the young upstart and get 6 kisses from him. Because manly men,
we're men, manly men, we're men in tights, yes!
Are not above showing affection, or, importantly, sharing their spoils. Lady Bertalik. She and her husband are #goals. It says a lot about their relationship that he trusts her to seduce young Gawain, and seduce him she does. In a gay mantle that to the ground was measured, and was fur-lined most fairly with fells well trimmed, with no comely coif on her head, only the clear jewels that were twined in her treasure by 20s in clusters. Her noble face and her neck all naked were laid, her breast bare in front and at the back also. She came through the chamber door and closed it behind her. But also, she discerns what he truly wants, which is not to lose his virginity before he dies.
So while you're here in my arms, let's make the most of the night like we're gonna die young.
But to not die at all. So she snares him with that. Even if it was Lord Bertalik's plan, Lady Bertalik put on an award-winning performance in her own right. Worldbuilding. This is why I wanted to talk about Sir Gawain. As a medieval myth, it is set in the real world, where mythical beasts are a road hazard. So, many a marvel in the mountains he met in those lands, that 'twould be tedious the 10th part to tell you thereof. At whiles with worms he wars, and with wolves also, at whiles with wood trolls that wandered in the crags, and with bulls, with bears, and boars too at times, and with ogres that hounded him from the heights of the fells. Not that the audience believed they would run into a giant on the road, but it wasn't impossible. I think that many world builders forget that when they put typical fairy tale monsters into a typical medieval setting, the inventions and practices of the time would have accounted for those monsters, even as a remote possibility. Sort of how a well-stocked storm cellar today would protect a family from the common tornado, an unlikely nuclear apocalypse, and a practically impossible zombie attack. While the threat changes, humans' needs don't. Authors really don't need to reinvent the wheel if they aren't going to reinvent the monsters. Plot. The first time, it is a true thriller, but once the reveal is made, you can go back and enjoy it as a comedy, or at least I do. It's a story of a most excellent jest, where the punchline is a beheading. Oh, dark humor. There is also a moral element, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. The joke is really on people like Gawain who make everything. The challenge was to give a blow and receive the same blow later. If Gawain had just bumped the knight on the head, he would have nothing to fear. Instead, he beheads the Green Knight, and when that doesn't work... Run, boy, run. Writing style. Real quick, since this is a myth and has multiple versions, I want to say that Tolkien's translation of the poem is distinctly good. The poetic style is to have long sections of almost prose, but each section ends in a rhyming quatrain called a bob and wheel. These lines are always superb. So I'm going to leave you with my favorite. Right here. With a nod of his neck he bowed, let bare the flesh appear. He would not by dread be cowed, no sign he gave of fear. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to see more. Thank you. Your patronage is greatly appreciated.